4:15, about 200 nautical miles from the port of La Guaira, an unusual incident took place. The automatic identification signal from the cargo ship Sparta IV suddenly stopped transmitting. This large vessel, over 500 feet long, and carrying military equipment worth an estimated $1 billion, disappeared from tracking systems, just as American Southern Command kept watch. The Russians had chosen a calculated risk by turning off their transponder, hoping to blend in with ordinary fishing boats and reach a Venezuelan harbor without detection. Almost immediately, orders came from higher command to intercept and prevent docking. Senior officers recognized that if the ship succeeded in unloading, Venezuela would gain missile systems capable of threatening shipping lanes and bases across the Caribbean. When the destroyer, USS Arleigh Burke, moved in to challenge the approach, the response from the other side was prompt and determined. Fighter squadrons of Su-30MK-2 aircraft took off from Libertador Air Base, equipped with supersonic Kh-31 anti-ship missiles that travel faster than 3 times the speed of sound. But then events took an unexpected turn. As the fighters moved toward the open sea, their radar returns vanished completely from the American fleet's screens. In the operations room, officers watched closely as the displays showed interference from the nearby Cordillera de la Costa mountain range. Had the aircraft withdrawn, or had they simply moved into an area beyond reliable detection? The answer came sooner than expected, and in a way few anticipated. From behind the high ridges rising to 2,000 meters, the Su-30 climbed sharply for a brief moment. In those few seconds, they activated their powerful radars at full strength, briefly illuminating the USS Arleigh Burke before descending once more into the valleys and disappearing again. It was a well-executed maneuver. They had used the mountains as a natural shield. This placed the American captain in a difficult position. If he turned on his own powerful radar to search for the hidden aircraft, the emissions would make his ship an easy target for those fast incoming missiles. Yet remaining silent would leave the ship blind to the movements of the Sparta IV in the distance. It was a genuine dilemma. If you find Venezuela's use of the terrain in this way particularly clever and daring, feel free to note one in the comments. Let us now see how the United States addressed this challenge. The captain chose a thoughtful response. He ordered complete radio and radar silence across the ship. Then he requested support from much higher altitude, where the mountains could not block the view the MQ-4C Triton reconnaissance drone. Operating well above 50,000 feet, the Triton provided clear oversight for the ships below. Information flowed securely to the destroyer's command center. The drone's primary task at that moment was to keep constant track of the Sparta IV, so it could not slip away during the period of silence. But the threats were not limited to aircraft alone. To protect the freighter's final approach, Venezuelan forces positioned S-300VM air defense batteries along the coast and employed a mobile tactic of brief activation followed by quick relocation. The method was straightforward. Radar units moved frequently, turned on only long enough to lock onto American P-8 Poseidon patrol planes, then shut down and withdrew into cover. This forced the P-8 seconds to keep their distance and prevented them from getting close enough to threaten the cargo ship. The American crews knew they were being targeted, but the rapid movements and short transmissions made it difficult to obtain precise locations for counter missiles. The Venezuelans believed this approach was nearly impossible to overcome, but they were mistaken. From an aircraft carrier positioned off Puerto Rico, a detachment of EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft was quickly dispatched. Flying at around 30,000 feet, they released several MAL decoy drones. These small devices were designed to imitate the radar signature of a group of FA-18 Super Hornet fighters on an attack run. The deception proved highly effective. The air defense crews, thinking a real strike was underway, activated their powerful 9S-32 grill pan radars at full power to track the supposed threat. That decision proved costly. The steady radar emissions gave the distant P-8 Poseidon aircraft enough time to record the exact electronic signatures and coordinates of each battery. With that information, the coastal defenses were mapped and neutralized without direct engagement. With the shore-based threat removed, attention returned to the main target, the Sparta IV. On the surface, the situation was approaching its most critical point. The freighter was now within 14 nautical miles of the coast, only 2 miles from the 12-mile territorial limit, roughly 10 minutes of sailing time. Once inside those waters, international law would offer protection, and direct intervention would become far more complicated. Why was this particular ship of such concern to the United States? Intelligence pointed to the presence of Club K missile systems hidden among standard shipping containers on deck. These systems are among the most concerning in modern asymmetric warfare. From the outside, they appear identical to ordinary 40-foot containers and can be transported on trucks, trains, or ships without attracting notice. Inside, however, they contain caliber cruise missiles with a range of 250 kilometers and substantial warheads. If delivered, such a system could be placed almost anywhere in a parking area near Caracas, for example, and still pose a serious threat to the Panama Canal or American facilities in Florida. Stopping it was essential. Yet a warship like the Arleigh Burke could not simply board a civilian vessel without risking serious diplomatic consequences. The decision was made to remain at a distance, with SM-6 missiles prepared if needed, while the U.S. Coast Guard cutter, James WMSL 754, was sent forward to conduct the approach. The stated purpose was a standard safety and compliance inspection framed as a law enforcement matter rather than a military one, a prudent distinction under international rules. Over the international distress frequency, the cutter instructed the Sparta IV to slow and prepare for boarding, to check for possible fire hazards and explosive risks. The Russian captain refused to comply. Instead, the ship increased speed to its maximum of 18 knots and continued toward the coast. They appeared confident that the Coast Guard would not use force. Tensions rose quickly. The Venezuelan Navy then intervened. 2 older Lupo-class frigates emerged from the haze, their 127mm guns trained on the American cutter. Though built decades ago, these ships carried powerful Otto Melara cannons that outmatched the cutter's armament. They crossed in front of the James, forcing it to turn sharply to avoid collision. The situation had become extremely serious. The Coast Guard vessel was clearly at a disadvantage in firepower. The Russian captain pressed ahead, ignoring repeated warnings, and now only minutes from reaching protected waters. It seemed the effort might fail. Opponents believed victory was near. But that confidence disappeared when a distinct sound echoed through the hulls, the sharp ping of active sonar at very close range, about 800 meters off the Venezuelan ship's beam. The sea surface suddenly erupted in a tall column of white water. Rising from below came the imposing form of the USS Washington, SSN 787, a Virginia-class Block III nuclear-powered attack submarine. This 115-meter vessel, driven by an advanced reactor, had surfaced directly beside the older frigates. The message from its commander was unmistakable. "We have followed you underwater for the past 4 hours. Would you prefer to continue, or shall we test the strength of your hulls against our Mark 48 torpedoes?" The sudden appearance of this submarine completely altered the balance. The 2 Venezuelan frigates suddenly looked small and vulnerable. They now faced surveillance from above, pressure from ahead, destroyers in the distance, and a powerful submarine directly beneath them. Their outdated sonar systems had detected nothing of the threat. In a real conflict, they would likely have been lost long before understanding what happened. At this stage, the opposing side's determination began to weaken. Even so, one Venezuelan Su-30 pilot remained unwilling to yield. In a moment of frustration, he made a serious misjudgment. The squadron leader executed a steep climb from behind the mountains, activated his targeting radar, and locked onto the USS Arleigh Burke. He gambled that the Americans would not open fire in international airspace. The moment the lock was detected, the destroyer activated its ANSPY, one radar at maximum power, directing energy toward the lead aircraft and preparing SM-6 missiles. At the same time, the Growler aircraft applied powerful electronic jamming through their ALQ-99 systems. The Su-30's instruments malfunctioned, displays flickered, radar failed, and the pilot's headset filled with disruptive noise. Faced with such overwhelming interference, instinct took over. The pilot broke the lock, turned sharply, and descended back into the valleys to escape. The aerial threat was ended. Only the Sparta IV remained. From high altitude, the MQ-4C Triton used laser designation to identify container number 894, believed to contain the Club K system. High-resolution thermal images were transmitted on the emergency frequency, accompanied by a clear warning. Sparta IV, we have identified military-grade explosive materials in container 894. This hemisphere remains under firm protection. Unauthorized challenges will not succeed. Please share them in the comments. Subscribe to Naval Command for more.